Hey guys, so this video is going to be an update, but it's also going to be a prelude to future videos. I think this channel is going to take a turn for the political. I'd avoided this because when it comes to targeted individuals, we come from all groups, right? Regardless of race, gender, sexual orientation, religion, political affiliation, right? We come from all groups, and so do the perpetrators. And I didn't want to alienate anyone. I still don't, right? I think all targets need to stand together. And right now there is an organized attempt to divide all of us based on those very, everything, right? Race, gender, politics, religion, just everything. We need to defend each other. But the political situation is becoming so extreme. I'd say there was an overlap between that and the targeting, but in reality, it's the same thing. Politics has always been used to justify targeting and destroying human beings. And I can't avoid this issue any longer. First, though, I'm going to give a brief update as to what's been going on. One, I'm wearing strange new glasses now. They're not really new. They're actually very old. I found them in my mom's. She had one of her old handbags put away, and I found these glasses a few months ago, and I think they're maybe like 30 years old. They're prescription sunglasses. I can barely see out of them because they're prescription. But something keeps happening to my sunglasses. I had a few pairs, and even the pairs that I didn't use, that was just sitting on the table, I picked it up and it was broken. This happened more than once. I'll pick it up and it'll fall apart in my hand. So something is happening. It can't just break just sitting there. So yeah, I'm wearing these. The targeting has been pretty bad for the last week or so. As I said, they're following me around when I'm working. Right now I do deliveries for a delivery app, and most of the customers are nice, but the perpetrators follow me. They'll, occasionally, a few times now, they've had someone follow me and talk loudly on the phone, referencing my former name. Once, as I was passing someone, he was talking on the phone, again, thick Russian accent, referenced my former name, looked at me, grinned, and followed me with his eyes as I walked away. And, he kept referencing my name as if they were talking about me. You can change your name, you can change a lot of things, but they still follow. I can't, they're still here, no matter what I change. You can't get away. They've also, had more people make references to things that I've said or done in private. And again, not common things that could apply to anybody, but personal things that they really couldn't know unless they heard or saw. They have people come by and do the nose tap or the nose flip. They just did it today. I was just downstairs, and they had this guy. I don't know if he was Russian because I didn't hear him speak, but he was driving a white car, and I looked. He was maybe in his 50s, white guy. He did the double nose tap as he drove by, and he really made a scene as he was driving into the driveway of the building. He made a scene, and he made it impossible not to look. And when I looked, he did the nose tap, or it was like a tap and a swipe. And they have them do that a lot. They'll have people come by me and do the double nose tap or the swipe, just swipe on the side of the nose or the under the nose rub with a finger. It's very frustrating because they're just letting me know that they're still there. That's what they're doing. A few days ago, they had this guy, as I went to deliver food to a building, and it was an upscale building, a lot of, because I try to work in upscale areas because the more expensive the delivery is, the bigger the tip, right? That's where you give the money. And also where there's a lot of business, where people are always ordering. So anyway, the building was upscale, and there were two guys got in with me, and one got on later, like a few floors later. And the two guys that got on with me, one was he was maybe 5'10", thin, lean, kind of muscular, brown hair, brown eyes. He looked exactly like I wish I could look. I've always wished I could look that way. You know, what can I do? I can lose, you know, I've lost the weight, but I'll never be taller. Um, some things you just can't change. Anyway, so the other guy the other guy was really tall though, maybe 6 something, fat, um, very unpleasant. He was very brash, very boorish. He was quite rude. When the third guy got into the elevator, the overweight guy that had gotten on with the other one, began mocking me and trying to get the other two to go along with it. And he was looking at me and making gestures and kind of almost snorting like a pig. I mean, he thought he was mocking me, but he's the one who looked like a pig, and it sounded like one. And you know, I thought to myself, you know what? You know, I'm not even going to say what I thought, but it was bad, and it's something that I would not normally ever say to someone. And I didn't say it to him. I didn't say it out loud, and I could have used it against him. You know, it was a reference to his weight and the fact that, you know, that's one thing where, you know, if you're going to silence someone, that still works, unfortunately. That's not a good thing, you know. There are a lot of cards that people play when they want to silence someone, and all are underhanded. And I don't like people who do that. You know, my thinking is debate like an adult, or not at all. Don't try to silence people with, you know, underhanded remarks that, you know, ad hominem attacks and so on. So I didn't. But just that I thought it was a little frightening, because that's so uncharacteristic of me, because I was obese before, right? I know what it's like to be targeted for that purpose. Now, granted, I didn't go around mocking people and humiliating people and trying to work up a crowd against them. But I do know what it's like to be mocked for being obese, because I was obese, and I could never imagine myself coming to the point where I would actually have certain thoughts about someone in that situation and actually consider saying out loud what I was thinking. And even that I was thinking it it's frightening. And this is where the perpetrators want us. You know, they don't just want to hurt us physically. They want to destroy us emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually, if that be possible. Right? They wanted to just drag us down to their level, to where we just hate everyone. We can't trust anyone, right? It's really bad. You know, they have people come at us just continuously. And a lot of people are from groups that, you know, because a lot of us were human rights activists. So a lot of people they have working for them are coming at us from groups that a lot of us spent our lives, you know, we spent our lives defending their lives. And now we have people from these groups attacking us. They don't even realize they're attacking their own allies, right? They've heard horrible lies about us, and we're not allowed to defend ourselves. They don't hear they're told not to let us speak or defend ourselves. So, and that's that's one of the main characteristics of a smear campaign, when the target is not allowed to defend him or herself. Because if a group of people, they only hear the side of the accusers, then of course they're going to keep attacking the target, because the target is always going to appear guilty because his or her side has never been told. So if someone is not allowed to speak, you know, in his or her own defense, assume that person is being lied about. But despite the fact that they're hearing horrible things about us, you know, this is how lynch mobs are formed. This is how vigilante mobs are formed. You would think that by now humanity would know better than to do this. But they're being controlled and manipulated based on their primal instinct, right? Their animal instinct to gather in a group to attack a common enemy. And they don't really care that the person they're going after might be innocent. They don't want to even consider it, because they need an excuse to justify what they're doing to her or him, right? Anyway, it's getting bad. It's getting pretty bad. And, you know, I'm being followed everywhere. Someone threw something out of a car at me again. So politics, right? This is the part of the video where I have to choose my words carefully. Understand, I don't want this video I don't want this channel to be deleted, so I have to be careful. Some might say that I'm a coward for not coming out and saying certain things. Maybe I am. Maybe I am. Because once you realize just how insidious this is, and that it's not just one group, I have to be careful. I can't just come out and say certain things. You know that. Anyway, they want us all attacking each other, okay? This is propaganda warfare. This is, consider what was done in East Germany, right? What the Stasi did to anti-communists once communism took over East Germany. Okay, this is their Zetzung style warfare, and that is propaganda warfare. Okay, the rulers use propaganda and lies and slander and defamation to work up the masses against targets, against people that they believe, that they consider to be a threat against their own power. It's difficult because, no one, once you become a target, the mind of the psychopath hunting you. In fact, nobody knows the mind of a psychopath better than his victims, right? We know, we might not always understand their intent or understand the sole purpose behind this, but we understand the mindset of the psychopaths attacking us. But we're the ones being discredited. Even though we understand better than anyone what's happening, we're the ones being discredited so that we're not taken seriously. And when it came to, Zersetzung, the Stasi in East Germany, one of their main strategies was to accuse their victims of being mentally ill when their victims complained about what was happening. Because this type of warfare, it's covert and it seems insane. It seems crazy. They do it in a way where, when their victims report it, it sounds crazy. So they accused their victims of being mentally ill, and in many cases they even had them institutionalized, and they discredited them. They discredited them that way. So these mental illness accusations are one form of an ad hominem. That's the excuse to get to divert the issue from the crimes of the psychopaths onto the mental status of their victims. You can't. In a situation like that, it's difficult to do or say anything, right? And right now with the red flag laws, they're trying to mark down pretty much anyone as being mentally ill. You think you're being followed? Well, that's paranoia, a sign of mental illness. All of these things are being listed as signs of mental illness. So what do you do when you actually are being followed? Well, you can't talk about it because you'll be deemed mentally ill and discredited that way. The documents are shared with everybody, with doctors, with the government, with police stations, so you won't get help. So this enables the criminals to keep committing their crimes with impunity. And let's not pretend that it's just one side doing this. Both the far right and the far left have used the notion of mental illness as a weapon to silence victims of crime. They've done this for years. There's not one side that's going to help us. Neither the right nor the left, neither the Republicans nor the Democrats. Okay, there's an illusion of a battle between them, but they're working for the same criminals. All right, Trump didn't help us; he made it worse. He damn near handed our nation to Putin, and Biden is not going to help us either. If you think Biden is our savior, you're not paying attention. And I know that being a targeted individual, you're going to hear propaganda against me. And so you're not going to take seriously what I have to say. And that's what happens to those of us who are hit with propaganda, whether it's a person or a group, right? Now we're in an even worse situation where all the propaganda is geared toward protecting protecting the integrity and the so-called good nature of the real criminals, right? They're pumping it out like crazy now in all of their movies and their TV shows and in their literature. The projection is one of their main strategies as well. So they take what they're doing to others and accuse others of doing it to them. They flip it. It's a satanic reversal, right? So right now, you've got this psychopath who commits horrific crimes against other people, and they're going to justify his actions. They're going to justify it until they can no longer justify it. Once they can no longer justify his actions, then they're going to change the strategy and admit that it was wrong, right? That he did wrong, but that he's not this horrible, selfish, cruel psychopath that we all say he is, that we his victims say he is. No. He's just misunderstood. And we're just being cruel, cold, unforgiving, you know what. It's easy to forgive someone for somebody else or for a crime he committed against someone you don't know and you don't care about. But when you're the victim of a crime and your suffering, it has been unimaginable, and you're still suffering from it, it's not quite as easy to just forgive and forget. You're not allowed to forget. And you know better than anyone the insidious, sadistic mind of your tormentor. But if you're a targeted individual, you will be silenced. How could you be so cruel to him? How could you be so unforgiving? How could you be so wrong? Oh, just give us a little time with him. We'll get through to him. He's just this, he's just that, he's just wounded, on and on and on. And you're going to be condemned for not accepting that. So, you have someone like Putin, right? Oh, we don't want war with Russia. We don't want war with Russia. Be nice to them. Oh, fuck you. No matter, the real victims are always silenced. The people who try to warn you about a real threat, they're going to be silenced. And so right now, what's happening? Those of us who speak up about the real threat of Russia, we're being silenced. Warmongers and this and that and worse than anybody. But we're the ones who know the true evil that lies behind Putin's agenda. And I'm not saying Russian in general. Of course, there are Russians who are wonderful people, and they're having a hard time too, right? Think about Alexei Navalny, still in prison in Russia. God help him. God help them all. We know the true evil of these dictators. But at any time we try to speak about it, we're the ones who are called bad, evil, warmongers, too condemning, too this, too that. Maybe we should give them another chance. Maybe we should go easier on them. We don't want a nuclear war, do we? We're literally condemned as the terrorists of the world when we try to warn people about what will happen if this monster is allowed to continue. I'm not trying to put this all on Russia. And I'm talking about this Zetsung style warfare, okay? I know the American government is involved in it, right? I'm well aware. But these strategies, the tactics they're using, they took right from the Russian playbook. And Russia learned it from the Nazis. But they elaborated on, they honed in on that form of attack. And the Stasi was worse than even the Gestapo. Shit. My camera's falling down. I knew that was going to happen. There we go. Hang on. Yeah, the Stasi, what came after the Holocaust, as horrible, as horrific as the Holocaust was, what the Stasi did was almost worse because, it wasn't, with the Holocaust, I hate to say it, but people were shocked into forcing an end to it, right? The corpses piled up. The suffering was seen, right? Thank God for the journalists and reporters who snuck cameras into the death camps. Because if they hadn't gotten that proof, people would have denied it even happened. Okay? But people saw it happened. They saw it happen. They saw the suffering. They heard the suffering. And so they put an end to it. You're right, it was shock factor. But what the Stasi did, they waged a covert warfare so insidious to destroy the target on every level. I mean, Zerzetsa means total destruction, total decomposition, right? Body, mind, and soul. And since it was so hard to prove, nobody stepped in. Well, only a few people stepped in to stop it, and they were considered mentally ill. They were considered mentally ill for doing it. The masses didn't do anything to help. Most of them went along with it. Same with MKUltra, COINTELPRO. The masses went along with these attacks on people because someone with authority told them that what they were doing was good. You'd think by now they would learn, but they haven't. I'm not putting this all on Russia. It just so happens that there are a lot of the people following me around have Russian accents, and but our own government must be involved because they're not helping us, right? Intelligence agencies know damn well what this type of warfare is. And yet when targets go in, for example, to the FBI, they get sent to a site and complain about, being followed and people coming into their home and doing things like opening a window or weird things like that, right? When they complain about attacks like this, they're sent to a psychiatrist. Now, why would it be so difficult? If the FBI admits that Russia is a threat, then why would it be so difficult for them to assume that maybe individual American citizens are also being attacked? Right? Why is that so hard to comprehend, to believe? The fact that they're not taking this seriously, it really does imply guilt. So, yeah, I don't think I'm putting this all on Russia, but I know that the people following me, unless they're faking those accents, they are Russian. Biden is not going to help us. He's not going to stop Putin. And Trump sure as hell didn't. But we can't come out and say Putin is a threat who has to be dealt with as the threat he is. Why? Because then we're called warmongers, terrorists, people who have the potential to bring on world war, worse than anybody else. Oh, look how bad we are. We're worse than anybody. We're being tormented beyond what most people could ever endure. And that's part of this, right? Provoking and provoking and provoking the target, hunting them, stalking them, terrorizing them, right? Waging a smear campaign, so that lying to every group possible so that everywhere the target goes, he or she is met with coldness and hostility, right? Denial of affections, denial of basic positive human interactions, right? His home is, or her home is being broken into. Windows are being left open to show him that someone was there, right? Things are being moved around to show her that someone was there. Things are being broken. People are going up to her or him and making comments referencing things that he or she said in the privacy of his own home, things that nobody else could have known. Threats are being made to the person's family. I mean, and then the target finally snaps, finally just breaks down, which that is the whole purpose of this sick program, to drive the target to break down. And the idiot lackeys who were told to make a certain comment here or a certain gesture there, they sit back and they say, "Oh wow, he really is bad. Look how violent he is. Look how angry she is. Why? All I said was this, or all I did was this." That was the final provocation before the person finally snapped. At that point, all it took was that little whatever it was. But consider what the target was put through before that. Learn about Zerzetzung and what was done to them. Learn about gangstalking and what is done to them. It is sick. It is perverse. It is beyond anything you can comprehend. The target isn't even allowed to sleep at night, right? They'll be pounding on the walls or pounding on the ceiling, or they'll drop something on the ceiling floor over and over again, or they'll stop for a little while and let the target fall asleep, just barely asleep. Okay, just to the point where he or she is about to fall asleep, and then they'll bang on the wall and wake him up again. Not allowed to sleep. Or they'll have someone skitter around, in the apartment above like this. Things like to give him or her a feeling of being infested, right? At the same time, they'll have someone pound on her door and run off. It just swarmed. One time, I was looking around, and I had, not too long before that, I had talked about how this feels like being swarmed by insects. And so what happened a little while later, I was outside, and there was these lights on the ground, and flittering around me on the building. And where the hell is this coming from? And I looked back, and there was a guy in his car sitting at the stoplight with a handheld mirror in his hand, holding it toward the sun and moving it around to create a flickering sensation all around me. Okay, again, reinforcing that feeling of being swarmed and infested. Everything these psychopaths do is meant to create the maximum amount of stress, anxiety, discomfort, pain, suffering, anguish. The whole point is to drive the target to break down. And the masses are used for that purpose. Okay, so when you're told, go here and make a certain comment, it might seem silly to you, but you could be repeating something that the target said in private. Okay, you're just reinforcing that he's being listened to in private. This is why they break down. And, when it comes to the mass shooters. Now, here's where I say not everything is black and white. I don't justify what they've done. I don't excuse what they've done. Okay, I'm only explaining it. An explanation is not necessarily justification, and in this case, it is definitely not. Okay, but consider what they're being put through before they finally just snap. With most of them, they said they were being followed. They said that people were coming into their home. They said that people were hacking their computer. Well, all of that happens to targets. Okay, they weren't crazy. They weren't deluded. These things were really happening to them. They were being swarmed, and eventually they snapped, and they exterminated people because they were conditioned to view people as an infestation, just as you're conditioned to view the targets as being bad, so that everything the target does in your mind will be considered bad. Just as you're being conditioned to view the target as bad, right? So everything the target does, you're going to perceive as being suspicious or negative, right? Even if it's the same thing that someone else did, it's going to seem worse when the target does it because you've been conditioned to see it as worse. Not that it actually is, right? Well, the targets are also conditioned. Okay, they are being trained to view everybody as the enemy. When we're talking about those mass shooters, what they did was horribly wrong, but they were not just unredeemable monsters. And the reason I explained earlier what I did about people excusing and justifying evil acts from evil people, is because I wanted to make this point, and I don't want anyone to think that that's what I'm doing. I don't excuse or justify evil acts from evil people, and I don't excuse or justify evil acts from hurt people who aren't inherently evil. I say hurt, but these people were destroyed, and the masses helped bring that about. In some cases, you have someone who has been tortured and tormented and just broken to the point of no return, and he or she breaks down and snaps, and that person is considered the ultimate evil beyond anything else, despite the fact that if even a fraction of what's being done to us were to be done to the perpetrators, they would snap so violently, they would be in prison. Some of them would be on death row. They wouldn't be able to tolerate a fraction of what we're expected to shut up and take quietly. Okay, if we even flinch, we're considered worse than anybody. No matter how bad the treatment was toward us, no matter what we were put through, we can't even flinch, let alone actually act out and do something bad. But if we do lose control and do something considered bad, and maybe it is bad, we'll never be forgiven. We'll be considered the worst of the worst. So evil, so terrible. And they'll use that as propaganda against us, right? See, I told you how bad these people were. Yeah. But when it comes to the truly evil psychopaths, they are always defended. It's always going to be said, no matter how evil, no matter how much harm they caused, no matter how much suffering they caused. When you try to explain that they are not good, that they're not just wounded puppies, that they truly are psychopathic, you're hated for it. You're despised for it. You're just a cold-hearted, evil asshole or a bitch or unforgiving this, and and so you're discredited, and they get away with murder. And the people they harmed are expected to just get over it and move on, even if they can't move on with their lives, even if the damage done is can't be changed. In some cases, they're expected to live in a social setting with their abusers and pretend that everything is fine when it isn't. Folks, propaganda warfare. This video is a prelude to what's coming. The kingmakers and the kingbreakers. They are the people who control everything. They control how society views you, whether people love you or hate you. Okay, they are the They use propaganda as warfare. Okay, if they see you as an ally, they'll build you up. If they see you as an enemy or a threat, they'll tear you down. Doesn't matter what you say or do, okay? Or don't say or don't do. They'll set a trap for you no matter where you step if they think that you're a threat to their power. Okay? Someone else might say the same thing or do the same thing, that they'll condemn in you, but they'll praise in him. Okay? That's how it is, because they see you as a threat, but they don't see him as a threat. They see him as an ally. Everything you say and do will be perceived as negative. Everything he says and does will be perceived as positive. Those are the kingmakers and the kingbreakers, and they're controlling everything. I'm going to make that video soon. Until then, I'm going to cut this short because it's getting too long. Peace.